Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Sean Meyers now joined by the head coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards, Matt Humbert. His team scoring an impressive 27-7 victory at home against Penn-Trafford. Coach, congratulations. Everyone knew your team was really good, but I think even some eyes were opened after that 27-7 win against the Warriors. What stood out to you in terms of the positives?
I think the complete team effort with everything. If you look, we had contributions by every unit, and obviously that's kind of the goal and the game plan in every game that you play, but sometimes it really doesn't work out like that. So, I think something that stood out for me was that our secondary, had 3 interceptions, and our D-line, we've kind of moved a lot of pieces around and shuffled some guys. I think that was the first game that they really kind of put it all together. So I think those 2 things were kind of the things that popped out to me the most.
And no doubt, Devin Whitlock was as good as advertised, if not better. We've been hearing about him for 3 years at Belle Vernon, even going back to his freshman year at Monessen. Some of his runs, one that was taken off the board because of penalty, and then the subsequent 50-yard run, just absolutely spectacular. What makes him so good?
Oh, that's a good question, because there's a lot of things that make him good. I think he's a complete football player this year, and that's probably where I'll start. He can run the ball. Obviously, he's electrifying, but I think he doesn't get enough credit for how he manages the offense, how he distributes the football. And I think this year, his senior year, he's really come full circle in terms of being a true quarterback and not just an athlete out there. So I think, to kind of answer your question, I think his lateral and vertical speed, I think that's something that's special. The kid can get vertical off of a mesh quicker than probably any kid that I've coached. So I think his elusiveness is kind of what separates him from the average football player.
And Penn-Trafford head coach John Rowain said that on that 50-yard touchdown run in which he backpedaled into the end zone, he kind of compared it to a backyard football play, where it was kind of not the design. So as a head coach and a person who draws up offensive plays, how much do you kind of just let him do what he's able to do out of the context of what maybe the design might be?
Well, and ironically, I think to the blind eye, it is kind of designed that way. I mean, we like to move the puck with Devin, number one, because he throws really well on the run. But number two, if read 1, 2, and 3, when we sprint him out, isn't there, then the fourth option is to run the football. So a lot of times when we get him on the perimeter, he has the option to obviously throw the football, but and kind of in the background, we always have that fail-safe mechanism that if the reads aren't there, or if the receivers aren't open, then it's time for you to use your legs and take off. So he does that quite a bit, and sometimes he can make a defense hurt for it.
When you look at the start of this season, Chartiers Valley on the road, a team that you faced in the playoffs last year. Penn-Trafford, one of the top teams in 5A, and many people think a very legitimate title contender in 5A. Winning both those games decisively, is that sort of making a statement for this season for the Leopards?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's so much football left, and I'm not going to downplay, but I'm not going to oversell it. I think that we put ourselves in a very advantageous spot, with that win over Penn-Trafford. But ironically enough, you just can't get too high on it because you got a lot of football left. And not to say that those games don't matter, but when it comes from a playoff standpoint, they really don't. So, now it kind of gets real in terms of playoffs and whatnot with conference play. So, look, we put ourselves in an advantageous spot. I think the kids are conscientious that we can have a successful season. We have the trappings of a successful season, but there's so much football to go, and we don't really have a crystal ball in terms of how the season's going to pan out. So we're just taking one day at a time, and I think that's one neat thing about my kids, and I think that's almost kind of a tradition that we've established at Belle Vernon, is the kids don't really kind of look too far in advance, and they don't really get sidetracked. I think mentally the mindset is just to keep grinding and take it one day at a time. And we got West Mifflin this week, and all roads lead through Thomas Jefferson. So Penn-Trafford was a really solid test, and the kids passed that with flying colors. But the real test will come once we get into the meat of our conference plan, especially when we take on the defending state champion Thomas Jefferson.
And we'll get to that topic momentarily, but I wanted to kind of get your take on maybe some of the less heralded players, because Devin Whitlock and Quentin Martin, and to a lesser extent Cole Waitman, they've made the headlines. People know their names. For those who haven't watched the Leopards, or maybe have only seen them once, like this past week on video, who are some of the guys under the radar that really make this team go?
Well, I think that's the neat thing. Devin does what he does, and Quentin is the same in that mold. But there are a lot of kind of people that are huge contributors that you just might not see when it comes to, the newspapers or the media or the accolade-based aspects of the game. And, I look at a kid like a Jack Breyer, who was a starting fullback last year for me and a starting inside backer. And this year, because we knew we had to shuffle some kids around on the line, he's starting guard. I mean, no one's going to notice who number 57 is, but, he's a kid that is selfless and completely just said yes, coach, to the move, and he's done a great job there, and he's the one leading and making those holes for Q and for Devin. So a guy like that, you got a kid like Chase Rakonen, who's done a great job with running the football with us and jet plays and catching ball screens and now screens for us on the perimeter, and then even on defense, you had a pick against Penn-Trafford. Kid like Jake Jetico, who is in a sense Quentin Martin's backup, but has meaningful reps offensively on a Friday night, and then when he's plugged in on defense, he too had an interception on defense. Kid like Ryan Hammer, who he's the guy that's going to get us some hard yards right up the middle, and he's going to complement Devin when we try to get Q out in space as well. So there's just a handful of guys I mentioned right there that probably don't get all of those accolade-based slaps on the back, but they're just as important and just as meaningful as anybody.
Talking to Matt Humbert, the head coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards. His team 2-0 to start the campaign, but those are both non-conference wins. Now you start Big 8 conference play, and it's not going to be easy at West Mifflin to get things kicked off. But as you mentioned, Thomas Jefferson looms the following week. Any concerns that this could be a trap game?
I don't think we kind of look at it as a trap game. I think we have to understand that, we just have to play our style of football, and we can't really get out of the element at all. And it's tough playing at West Mifflin. I mean, I think anybody in our conference knows that it's a beautiful venue. It's a nice facility, but it's a challenging place to play down there. We always say, you're probably down 14 points when you're playing at West Mifflin right off the bat. So, I don't know if it's necessarily categorize it as a trap game, but you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward, and you want to make sure that you get out of this game unscathed, and obviously you want to make sure that you win the game. They pose a lot of challenges against some athletic kids, and defensively, I feel like they change up their defense weekly, so you never know what you're going to get, and they keep you on your toes with that. So we just need to make sure that we take this game as serious can be, because we don't want to be looking ahead or peek ahead, and I think that's where teams fall victim to a quote unquote trap game. So we just need to take care of business on Friday.
And lastly, I know you said that you have to stay focused in the task at hand, obviously going against a pretty talented Titans team, but everyone circles Thomas Jefferson on the calendar for Belle Vernon area. That being said, I know the goals are to make a postseason run and to win a championship, but do you consider the regular season meeting a must-win game?
Not necessarily. Obviously, that's the objective, but when you look at 15 and 17 when we beat them in their regular season, they got the final laugh in the semifinals, and that propelled them to obviously, win a WPO championship. So it's one of those things where there's like I just alluded to, even after that game, you still got a lot of football left, and you still got playoffs looming in the background. So, it's one of those things where you obviously want to win it, but it's not going to make or break your season in that retrospect. But it's kind of the same old song and dance, that we've went through, over the past 5 years. They're just such a good football team. They're probably the most storied franchise in southwestern Pennsylvania, in my eyes at least. So, but, the win versus Penn-Trafford, I think, was a great win for us. I'm happy they had that non-conference matchup, because that gave us a big, formidable opponent that, is big and beefy and likes to get down to business at the line of scrimmage, because we needed that preparation and anticipation for what we're going to see in week 4. So, hopefully that'll work out for us. But I'm not also going to sugarcoat and kind of tiptoe around that it's not a big game. Of course, the kids are looking forward to that, and all roads always lead through them. So I think the neat thing is it's going to be an exciting game, and I think with them knocking off Gateway and us knocking off PT, I think that's going to kind of make the the game a little more heightened, I guess, and we're hoping that we're gonna come out and put our best foot forward in that game.
Matt, thank you so much for doing this, and congratulations once again on the great start.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you guys and everything you do.
That's Matt Humbert, the head coach for the Belle Vernon area Leopards, right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.